Amen. Amen. So I want to speak with you and challenge our thinking for just a moment on the topic, what is your address? What is your address? Now, for some of us, we're thinking a number in Milton, a number in Framingham, a number in any variety of places that we may live or may have lived. But think with me for just a few minutes on the topic of what is your address? And as we begin to look into this topic a little bit, I want to invite you to share with us in the reading of Psalm 61. It's a fairly short psalm of 8 verses, and the New International Version reads as following. Hear my cry, O God. Listen to my prayer. From the ends of the earth I call to you. I call as my heart grows faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the foe. I long to dwell in your tent forever and take refuge in the shelter of your wings. For you, God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. Increase the days of the king's life, his years for many generations. May he be enthroned in God's presence forever. Appoint your love and faithfulness to protect him. Then I will ever sing in praise of your name and fulfill my vows day after day. Amen. Now I know, particularly my child, who's before us right now, that he's thought to himself, where is my mother going this time? Where are you going with this notion of what is one's address? Well, over the years, I've had a recurring dream. It's been a dream in which I found myself residing fully as I understood myself to be within the body of someone else who's in there too. So work with me for a second. This is a weird dream. But in this dream, I find myself able to see the thoughts of that person, to see the things that person is seeing, to think the thoughts that that person is thinking, but at the same time, to think my own thoughts, to experience the things that that person is experiencing in my own mind's eye, independently and individually. But at the same time, I'm able to communicate with that person. No words, no sudden movements, but communication, instantaneous communication, as if two people are walking together, understanding one another, communicating with no words. The first time I had that dream, I thought, okay, where is this one coming from? But it occurred to me that we talk so often about heaven being our home. But how about abiding in God? How about every element of our lives beginning with the notion that we are actually in God? There's a song that says, oh, Oh, what joy we often, oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pains we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Well, what if God is our address? What if we are embedded within the Almighty on a daily basis? Well, what does that mean? There was a process. As horrible as it was, there was a process that occurred in Nazi Germany. And it occurred with new recruits. And in that process, those individuals were asked their address. So as I might ask you your address right now, you might give me your house number. And I would say, wrong answer. What is your address? You might tell me the city or the town that you live in. And I'd say, if I were the trainer, wrong answer. What is your address? You might tell me the country of your residence. And I would say, wrong answer. You reside in God. They told those recruits, you reside in Hitler. And it was in the moment that I was reflecting on this that I realized that if you are in God, if you have made God a part of your life, if you are in God and that is your residence, then you will see the thoughts of God. You will think the thoughts of God. You will understand God's way. You will be in God's way because psychologically, spiritually, everything that you are will be encapsulated in who God is. And after a day like today and a week like this week, that's good news. That's good news. And so I just want to take a moment to draw your attention to verses 2, 3, and 4. You see, in verse 2, the psalmist reminds us that God is a rock. God is a rock. God is firm. God is a safe place. God is a place to where you go when you need safety. God is not literally a rock, but God is like being on a very high rock where nothing and no one can reach you or harm you. Verse 3 says, you are a strong tower against the foe. You see, we think about towns, and some of the old towns in Europe have this very obviously, old towns with walls around them. These walls kept enemies out of the town, and the walls had tall parts, or the towers. And the towers would allow soldiers to see their enemies from all around. But the enemies could not reach those soldiers. Being a resident in God's address is not a tower, but you can see very high and long off. You can see what's coming at you from a distance, and you are protected because you are high above any of the things that may come your way. Then, in verse 4, the New International Version makes reference to longing to dwell in the tent of God. The word tent can also be the word house. God is a house. God is a tent. In the times that David is analogizing here, tents were made of animal skins. They could be moved from place to place. When someone asked you to come into their tent, David introduces this notion of a tent forever, he's saying that God's tent is an eternal place, perhaps even heaven itself. You see, in 4, the psalmist is saying, I want to live forever in your house, God. What is your address? I just want to share very quickly before we have a moment to share as a small group that I am finishing up the book called Heaven is Real. And if you haven't read it, it is a New York Times bestseller, and that's not why it's interesting to me. But it is a book that talks about a child's experience with God. And that child was with God for 3 hours. And he shared how he could see his family. He saw his mother. He knew what was going on. And he came and he saw, he sat in front of God with Jesus at his right hand and Gabriel at his left. And he said they gave him a little chair so he could witness all that was going on around him. Can you imagine living in God every single day of your life? What is your address? Amen.